Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Be a serious threat to the safety of others, Your Honor.
New at noon, 9 on your side has learned that the same officer who worked with suspected serial robber Jacob Goodwin are partly responsible for his arrest. Goodwin is a former Newtown police officer accused of stealing from 5 local businesses. We now know those officers recognized Goodwin's car, and that is how he was turned into investigators. 9 on your side's Allie Kramer was in the courtroom for his first court appearance. She has the latest from the Hamilton County Justice Center.
We just learned that when deputies served a search warrant on Jacob Goodwin's home in Anderson Township, they found several weapons and police equipment, including a tactical vest that he may have been wearing during the alleged robberies. Jacob Goodwin walked into court this morning, no longer in uniform, but in gray jail stripes. Goodwin is accused of robbing 5 businesses at gunpoint in just 4 weeks. Police say he hit Mount Washington, Anderson Township, Oakley, Columbia Tusculum, and Norwood. According to his attorney, Goodwin has 10 years experience in law enforcement. It's that very reason that the Hamilton County Sheriff's detectives requested a high bond.
Mr. Goodwin has extensive law enforcement training, which could hinder us further on with his experience in how we do our investigations, as well as looking for persons that we need.
Deputies told the judge they don't have DNA evidence back yet, but said that they did find evidence inside Goodwin's home that connects him to the robberies.
We consider him to be a serious threat to the safety of others, Your Honor, is that he came armed with a firearm. If things went bad, he had a ballistic vest on, and first responders would be in for more than they would bargain for.
The judge set bond at $400,000. We're also learning more today about Goodwin's career in law enforcement, which began in 2010 when he was a part-time Newtown police officer. Chief Tom Sinan says Goodwin served for about a year, was disciplined several times, and resigned when he learned he was about to be terminated. Goodwin moved on to the Aberdeen Police Department and then a position with the Elmwood Place Police. He also worked in public safety at UC Medical Center until 2014. Deputies indicated that Goodwin could be facing additional charges. He's due back in court on May 1st. Reporting downtown, Allie Kramer, 9 on your side.
I-Team, recycled cops move from department to department despite discipline issues. Craig Cheatham, James Legate. November 21, 2017. Over the last 6 months, the WCPO I-Team has collected records from 40 different police departments and reviewed thousands of disciplinary cases involving officers. Our motives are simple. We want to make sure the people who protect us and enforce our laws are worthy of the high level of trust the public gives them. Read more about this project and why we are doing it here. Elmwood Place, Ohio. Jacob Goodwin began working as police officer in Newtown in 2010, only to resign in 2011 when told several disciplinary actions would soon result in his termination. Yet he went on to work for the Aberdeen Police Department, then landed in Elmwood Place, where he received several more complaints. One of those involved an incident in 2016 in which he was accused of going in and out of consciousness at the Elmwood police station while on the job, according to police disciplinary records the 9 on your side I-Team reviewed. That incident led to Goodwin's termination from the department and appears to have ended his career in law enforcement. But Goodwin is not the only example of a police officer who resigned in the face of disciplinary action or was fired only to get hired by another local law enforcement agency. The I-Team reviewed thousands of disciplinary records from 40 police departments in the tri-state. The I-Team's investigation found police departments in Elmwood Place and in some other small communities have a history of hiring disgraced cops that other departments have fired. About a dozen police officers have found new jobs as police officers after resigning or being fired due to disciplinary action locally in the past 3 years. The I-Team also found that sometimes departments fail to do basic background checks that would quickly expose reasons to not hire officers who have run into trouble elsewhere. Law enforcement experts told the I-Team the system of neglect makes it easier for police officers accused of repeated wrongdoing to remain in law enforcement. Goodwin had worked as a part-time officer in Newtown starting in 2010. However, supervisors wrote that Goodwin established a pattern of poor decision-making ability. After just a few months on the job, Goodwin brought police equipment while working a security detail that was not arranged through the department and during which he was not supposed to be identified as a police officer. He was later written up for working overtime without permission. Then, in February of 2011, a Pinehurst Drive resident complained after she woke up and found Goodwin inside her home in the middle of the night after she left a garage door open. Goodwin's supervisor wrote he placed his life and residents' life in unnecessary danger, and had no legal right to enter the residence. Even though Officer Goodwin had good intentions, being a police officer requires having good decision-making skills, and we are under the opinion that further training would not improve Officer Goodwin's decision-making skills, police records state. It is our recommendation that Officer Goodwin's employment be terminated with the Village of Newtown. Goodwin was given the opportunity to resign before he was fired. He did. The Aberdeen Police Department then hired Goodwin, but he resigned from that position in 2012. The I-team wasn't able to determine why he resigned. In January 2014, he started at Elmwood Place Police Department, where he continued to receive complaints. In 2015, Officer Todd Armstrong complained about the way Goodwin and Officer Justin Habig handled an incident with a mentally ill man who made threats against himself and others. The pair said they would charge the man with anything to lock his ass up, before a Cincinnati officer stepped in and took the man for a mental health evaluation, Armstrong wrote. In December 2015, a manager at the Vine Street UDF filed a complaint stating that Goodwin had been behind the counter, ringing up himself and other customers. Mayor Gerald Robertson called the complaint disturbing in a letter to Goodwin. "Your behavior is not, in my opinion, a trivial event," he wrote. "Hopefully, merely a verbal warning should suffice in correcting it. I see your behavior as taking advantage of your position as a police officer to do improper things." One morning in April 2016, Chief Eric Bartlett asked another officer, Christopher Lind, why Goodwin wasn't answering his phone while on duty. When Lind returned to the police department, he found Goodwin reclined in the chair appearing to be asleep. "I woke OFC Goodwin and advised him to call Chief Bartlett back as soon as possible," Lind wrote. During this time, OFC Goodwin seemed groggy and was not forming complete sentences or talking in a coherent manner. "I felt that the safety of OFC Goodwin could be in jeopardy if he attempted to drive home. He was going in and out of consciousness. Goodwin's girlfriend gave him a ride home, but he returned about an hour later looking for medication he said he had left behind. He was sweating profusely and not making complete sense," Lind wrote. Goodwin later claimed it was medication to help with insomnia. Because he was found unconscious on the job, the department ordered Goodwin to undergo a drug test. However, the lab found it did not believe the sample he gave was urine and they counted it as him refusing to take the test. Jacob Goodwin. Bartlett recommended Goodwin be removed from the department. Robertson's successor as mayor, William Wilson, agreed with the chief's recommendation and wrote Goodwin should be fired as soon as possible. That was apparently the end of Goodwin's career in law enforcement, but it wasn't his last run-in with the law. Earlier this year, authorities arrested Goodwin and charged him with 6 counts of aggravated robbery and 7 counts of robbery. Newtown Police Chief Tom Sinan said a Newtown officer had recognized Goodwin's pickup truck from surveillance footage of a robbery. Goodwin robbed 3 convenience stores, a pharmacy, and a bar, according to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. When authorities searched Goodwin's home, they found weapons, police equipment, and ballistic vests they believe he used in the robberies. "Our responsibility is to uphold a standard of service and protect the public from harm, which we did when he was released from the Newtown Police Department and now 6 years later," Sinan said. "The one officer I didn't want." Goodwin drew some complaints while working in Elmwood Place, but Officer Justin Habig faced more complaints from the public than any other officer in the department. Habig was eventually fired, only to later have 2 other police departments hire him. On October 24, 2015, Officer Todd Armstrong believed one incident had been handled in such an unprofessional and unsafe way that he filed a formal complaint against Habig. It was about 4:40 a.m. October 24, 2015, and Habig cut off oncoming traffic without activating his emergency lights to turn and stop a cream-colored Lincoln Town car that had passed, according to Armstrong. When Habig did turn on his lights, the driver pulled over and a passenger jumped out and ran. Armstrong blocked the sidewalk with his police cruiser. Habig already had his gun out and was telling the man to get down. Armstrong joined him, but the man was on his knees and refused to lay on his stomach. Habig tucked his gun close to his body, walked up to the man and placed his firearm within 2 inches of the suspect's forehead, telling him, "Just give me a reason, just give me a reason, motherfucker," Armstrong wrote in his complaint. Habig grabbed the suspect by the front of his shirt and jerked him to the street face first. Despite Armstrong's complaint, there's no record of Habig facing any discipline for that incident, or for any of the other complaints made against him, other than letters from the mayor. The Elmwood Place Police Department hired Habig in September 2014. Habig wrote more tickets than anybody else, and some higher UPS liked his aggressive manner, former Mayor Gerald Robertson said. But Habig also drew many complaints. Robertson wrote in a letter to Habig that he had more complaints than all other Elmwood Place officers combined. Candace Roper was one of the people who complained. Roper was 6.5 months pregnant when she said Habig, who was not in uniform, repeatedly kicked her in the leg and shoved her into a police car after another officer arrested her in November 2015. "He was arrogant and he told me nothing was going to happen about her complaint," Roper said. And it didn't. Robertson addressed the incident in a letter to Habig after Roper complained. "I'm disturbed by what appears to be rough treatment of a pregnant woman," Robertson wrote. But Habig faced no further discipline. Just days earlier, James Williams had complained that Habig, who had pulled him over for alleged traffic violations, pointed a gun at him and shouted, "Pull your effing hands out or I will shoot you, motherfucker." Habig wrote in a police report that Williams had been speeding and ran a red light. Williams denied that. "He snatched me out of the vehicle," Williams said. "He lifted me up and slammed me on the ground and talked about, 'Don't fight me. I'm not fighting you, bro. I don't even know what's going on.'" In one case, a delivery driver complained that Habig ticketed him after he stopped to ask Habig for directions. Officer Armstrong filed complaints about Habig on 2 other occasions, writing that Habig was unstable and unable to control his emotions, or conduct himself in a professional manner. Robertson, the former mayor, said Habig was the one officer I didn't want. There was 1 week when he received 4 complaints about Habig. "That's more than you would expect to get in 2 to 3 years, Robertson said. On January 7, 2016, Wilson terminated Habig's employment with the department due to Habig's unsatisfactory performance. But despite the unusual number of complaints and being fired after less than 2 years on the job, Habig landed a job with the Addiston Police Department. Then, the Clovis Police Department hired Habig on August 18, 2016 as a part-time officer. He was promoted to full-time this year. Chief Rick Jones wrote that Habig came highly recommended from Addiston and he has received no complaints about Habig's service. Same issue, different department. The I-Team previously reported on former Blue Ash officer Chris Zielinski and ex-Coleraine Township Sergeant Joe Redmond, who both avoided criminal charges by agreeing to resign from their jobs after unrelated but similar cases of improper use of Ohio's law enforcement automated data system, also known as LEADS. But state records show they were not required to give up their certifications, meaning they could still work as police. After the new Miami Police Department hired Redmond as an officer in May 2015, Chief Danny Gilbert was surprised to learn that Redmond had a lifetime suspension from LEADS. It should be noted that had I known of the LEADS suspension, Mr. Redmond would never have been hired, Gilbert wrote in a letter to system administrators. He asked administrators to reinstate Redmond's access to the system after asking Redmond what had happened. "It is my opinion that Mr. Redmond has been truthful with me," Gilbert wrote. "He appears in all aspects to be an open, honest, and forthcoming individual. I do not believe that he is attempting to mislead me with his statements. I have been in law enforcement for 32 years and consider myself a strong judge of a person's character and honesty." Before going to New Miami, Redmond had worked at the Coleraine Police Department for more than 13 years. During that time, he improperly used the lead system at least 5 times to look up information on his then-fiancée and, later, a man who was romantically involved with a co-worker of Redmond's who Redmond was also involved with. Redmond ran the man's license plate while he was on duty and stopped by the woman's house, according to police records. The woman told investigators Redmond would then drive by the other man's house when she was there and once followed her home. But leads is not in place so police can look up whoever they want. The system is only supposed to be used for the administration of criminal justice. Those who use it for other reasons could face a charge of unauthorized use of property, computer, cable, or telecommunication property. But the department never charged Redmond. After he was first caught looking up his fiancée in 2014, the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office declined to press charges. He was suspended for 48 hours. The incident that occurred does not represent the quality of the officer, Coleraine Chief Daniel Melloy wrote in a letter to Redmond's ex-fiancée in response to her complaint. After the second incident, Redmond resigned. Once Redmond was working at New Miami, Leeds administrators agreed to give Redmond access to the database again, but warned that New Miami would be liable for any misuse. But in April 2016, another ex-fiancée of Redmond filed a petition for a domestic violence civil protection order. In it, she alleged that Redmond had used the Leeds system to obtain information about her. New Miami fired Redmond on May 10, 2016. The officer shuffle. Some researchers refer to this as the officer shuffle, moving from one agency to another after getting in trouble, said Phil Stinson, an associate professor of criminal justice at Bowling Green State University. "It's a problem." Stinson said the officer shuffle is prevalent, partly because many smaller police departments can't afford to pay for a recruit to attend a police academy, so they need to hire people who already have their peace officer certification. As a result, you do provide opportunities for people who have washed out from one agency to be hired in other places, Stinson said. In such cases, Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine said he believes it would be better to include not just a resignation, but also provisions that the officer turn in his or her certificate to be an officer in the state of Ohio. Also, the state should create and maintain a database documenting findings of police misconduct as a way to reduce the shuffle of bad police, DeWine said. "We should have some system. We have 900 police departments in the state of Ohio. Some system that when someone is disciplined, someone leaves under a cloud, that there ought to be a database so the new police department, who is not being told by that officer where they worked before, can go into that and see what that officer has done before," DeWine said. However, DeWine has not told the I-Team about any action he plans to take in regard to this issue.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me, and I'm sick of it. So I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.